Hello, Internet family and friends. Welcome to the very first Real Info story. I'm JBD, and I'll be your narrator for this tale that I call Follow the Money. As you can see on the screen here, I have a Bible quote. In 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10, the Apostle Paul tells Timothy that the love of money is the root of all evil. And Timothy was a disciple of Paul. Now, a lot of people misquote Paul by saying money is the root of all evil, but it's actually the love of money that is the root of all evil. Let's take a journey down the rabbit hole. This will be a history lesson, a part of history that not too many people know about. So buckle up, ladies and gents, and prepare to have your mind blown. There's a famous quote that goes, "The pen is mightier than the sword." It was made famous by a playwright named Edward Bulwer-Lytton in his famous play Richelieu in 1839. And what it means is that writing or words can be more influential and effective than power, money, or violence. It's not the pen itself that makes it effective. It's how the pen is used. The pen is just an inanimate object, and it can be used for benefit or for harm. If we apply this to a more modern topic, we could say the same thing about guns, for example. It's not the pen, it's how the pen is used. It's not the gun, it's how the gun is used. It's not the drug, it's how the drug is used. That last point there, drugs. That brings me to the main subject of my story. This is John D. Rockefeller, the oil magnate. In 1901, John D. Rockefeller founded the Institute for Medical Research. It's now known as the Rockefeller University. Rockefeller played a huge role in shaping the medical industry into what it is today. He did this with the help of Andrew Carnegie and his Carnegie Foundation. We'll talk about this more in a moment. In 1847, the AMA was founded. At the time, homeopaths, naturopaths, herbalists, natural healers, midwives, etc., they all outnumbered the medical healers 2 to 1. In the late 1800s, the AMA was just a normal organization amongst many. It didn't have the respect it has today. In 1883, their medical journal, JAMA, was created. According to JAMA, the AMA took in about 34 grand a year in the late 1800s. But they wanted more. In 1904, the AMA created the Council for Medical Education. The Council's mission was to upgrade medical education because surveys in JAMA showed that graduates of conventional medical schools failed the medical board at twice the rate of graduates of homeopathic schools. This is why the natural healers outnumbered the medical healers 2-1. The AMA needed a lot of money to complete its mission, so they asked the Rockefellers and the Carnegies for assistance. In comes a man named Henry Pritchett, the president of the Carnegie Foundation. Pritchett said, "I will give you the funding if you allow me to direct the show." So, Pritchett created a task for this man, Abraham Flexner. Flexner was to go around the country and take inventory of all medical schools in the United States. It took Flexner 5 years to complete his task, and the end result has become known as the Flexner Report. Now you have to ask yourself, why would Rockefeller and Carnegie have interest in the medical industry? Neither of them had any type of medical training or education. And why was the AMA against homeopathy? To answer this, we have to go even further back in time. In the 1500s, opium is introduced into European medical literature as laudanum. Laudanum became extremely popular for the next few centuries. Skipping ahead, in 1803, Frederick Wilhelm Serturner discovers the active ingredient in opium by dissolving it in acid, then neutralizing it with ammonia. The result is morphine. In 1827, Merck and Company of Darmstadt, Germany, began commercially manufacturing morphine. In 1895, a man named Heinrich Dresser, who worked for Bayer, finds that diluting morphine with acetyls produces a substance that doesn't have the same side effects as morphine. The substance is called diacetylmorphine. Bayer begins production of this substance under the name heroin. Since this is a history lesson, not a biology lesson, I will try to keep this next part as simple as possible. An acetyl is a smaller part of a larger molecule. It's a group of atoms that can be attached to any molecule to change its structure. They're important reactive intermediates because you can combine different acetyls with different molecules to make different products, from makeup to food to medicine. The acetyls used to produce heroin back then came from, you guessed it, petrochemicals. As I stated earlier, natural healers outnumbered the medical doctors. Chiropractors, Ayurvedic practitioners, and acupuncturists are a few more examples. Rockefeller had to eliminate his competitors of Western medicine because it was the only modality that would propose drugs, thus enriching Rockefeller, who owned the means to produce those drugs. And as for this guy, it was a business investment as well. He would use his prestigious Carnegie Foundation to help fund Flexner's travel and report. Both Rockefeller and Carnegie would later use their tax-exempt foundations to offer huge grants to medical schools that would only teach allopathic medicine. Of course, schools wanted these grants, so, of course, schools taught allopathic medicine.
Hubba, hubba, hubba. Money, money, money. Who do you trust?
Allopathic medicine is a type of medicine whose practitioners received training in recognized academic schools of medicine. And thanks to the Flexner report, now the AMA has complete control over which schools are the proper schools of medicine. A doctor, by today's standards, is someone who practices allopathic reductionism. Allopathic reductionists rely on surgeries and medication. One slogan I've heard is, "A pill for every ill." Allopathic reductionism reduces the body down into parts: a heart, a lung, liver, etc. There's a surgical procedure for each part. There's a pill to treat each part. Allopathic reductionism is the complete opposite of naturopathic holism. Naturopathic holism looks at the body as a whole. For example, if you're having digestive issues, a naturopathic doctor will look at your lifestyle, your diet, your daily routine, and prescribe a regimen, one that will get rid of heartburn. An example of an allopathic doctor treating the same thing, well, they would give you a little purple pill. And they'll say, "Take this, call me in 2 weeks, let me know how it's working." A holistic doctor would literally attempt a cure of the heartburn, where a reductionistic doctor will only manage the symptoms for however long the patient lives. Now, remember, in the book of Timothy, the Apostle Paul says that the love of money is the root of all evil. I'd like to also bring your attention to another verse found in the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. "No one can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and Mammon." This is reiterated in the Gospel of Luke. Now, mammon doesn't just mean money. Mammon is wealth regarded as an evil influence or a false object of worship. This really makes you think, does it not? What's the reason? What's the motive? The truth is that natural medicine works just fine. So, as a citizen of the United States, as a consumer, as a customer, why can't we have a choice? Freedom is not a gift from government. Why can't we have a choice? When it comes to health care in the United States, we do not have a free medical market. We have no choice. Dr. Benjamin Rush was one of our founding fathers. He was a physician. He was the first Surgeon General of the United States, and he was a signer of the Declaration of Independence. He has a famous quote. He says, "Unless we put medical freedom into the Constitution, the time will come when medicine will organize an undercover dictatorship. To restrict the art of healing to one class of men and deny equal privilege to others will be to constitute the Bastille of medical science. All such laws are un-American and despotic and have no place in a republic. The Constitution of this republic should make special privilege for medical freedom as well as religious freedom." And yet, here we are. The robber barons and the AMA created a monopoly on the medical industry. And we've been a slave to this monopoly for 110 years now. No one alive today was around before 1912. We've all grown up in a culture inside of this medical monopoly. The only medical ads we see in magazines are promoting allopathic medicine. The only medical shows we see on TV are about allopathic medicine. The only type of medical TV commercial we see is allopathic medical TV commercials. The only type of medicine that you will see practiced in our hospitals is allopathic medicine. And here's my favorite. The only health care our insurance will pay for is, you guessed it, allopathic health care. What's one of the first things you look for when job searching? Health insurance. What's one of your biggest monthly payments each and every month? Health insurance. America is supposed to be strong and healthy, right? I mean, with all of this science and all of this education that goes into med school and nursing school, we should be at the top of the list, right? Well, the only thing we're number one at is obesity. And even though we spend more money than other major countries per person per year for health care, heart disease is on the rise, cancer is on the rise, diabetes, stroke, Alzheimer's, all on the rise. Well, what about heart disease? Here, take these chemicals. Well, what about cancer? Here, let's cut it, poison it, and burn it. And hopefully the treatment kills the cancer before it kills you. Well, what about diabetes? Got you covered. Well, what about a stroke? Got you covered. Well, what about Alzheimer's? Covered. And we're still raising money for them, making them richer. We're eating our plastic. And somebody, somewhere, is sitting high and mighty. Now, believe it or not, I am not against modern medicine. I mean, imagine what kind of world we'd live in if antibiotics didn't exist, or penicillin, or Novocaine. Can you imagine the type of world we would live in without certain drugs? Here's what I'm against. I'm against legal drug dealing. I'm against the insane way that legal drugs are used. A pill for this, a pill for that, a pill for the side effects of this and that. I'm against not having a free medical market. I'm also heavily against, and everyone should be heavily against, mandatory vaccinations. I'm against the idea of an MD being the only type of individual that knows anything about healthcare. Doctors don't know everything, but we're led to believe that they do. They've only been trained in one small piece of the healing puzzle. How much nutrition is taught in medical school or nursing school? According to the Journal of Biomedical Education, only 29% of U.S. medical schools offer medical students more than 25 hours of nutrition education. That's about a day's worth, folks. Yet, we continue to go to the doctor for our health care. And the only reason that they're up on a pedestal the way they are is because they legislated themselves there over 100 years ago. I will end part 1 with a quote. It was Leonardo da Vinci that said, "There are 3 types of people: those who see when they are shown, and then those who never see." I hope you enjoyed part 1 of my real story, Follow the Money. I wish you health and happiness, and I bid you farewell. Thanks for listening.